Hi, I'm Craig, and here today I am ready to explain high pressure common rail fuel injectors. Now there's been new demands put on the fuel systems, and the fuel injectors are no different, and they seem to be evolving. The injectors are changing in these high pressure common rail systems. For sure the pressures are going higher, but also being able to inject when they want and how quickly plays a huge role. So let's look at why the injectors have to change. So the new demands for injection systems is apparent because of emissions, EPA standards, competition between engine manufacturers trying to come out with a better, smaller product that produces more horsepower and runs cleaner. So to do that, we need flexible injection pressures independent of engine speed. So in the past, the engine speeds played a huge role on when the injections can take place. We don't, in high pressure common rail, we can inject any time and control the injection at that point. Higher pressure, always higher pressure. And the history of fuel injection, the pressures are getting higher and higher. As we go through this tutorial, we'll start around 20,000 with a CR1 injector, CRS1, first generation injector. Around 20 PSI they were peaking. Number 2 went to 23 and they went up from there. The injectors I'm talking about are just under 40,000 PSI, but there are rumors out there that they go higher than that. So let's look at this next. Higher pressure, improving atomization and better blending within the cylinders. The piston is being forced up. There's turbulence in the combustion chamber. Fuel is being directed in there, very small atomized droplets of fuel, and it has to mix quickly and explode. Now, it's just not one injection. That's the thing. We're getting lots of little injections, possibly. And that number is changing as well. So variable timing and variable ending timing, controlling the timing of the engine. So it has to be capable of this. Multiple injections. So small bursts. So there can be pilot injections, there can be post injections, and there can be 3 or 4, depending on the generation or the injector, of injections during that combustion process. Again, why? Cleaner, more power, quieter, getting the energy into the cylinder, or getting the cylinder to produce the energy when it's most needed. And reduced or increased injection rate. So the rate of injection, how much fuel is being delivered at different times, needs to be controlled. This is called rate shaping. And that control is going to make it smoother, quieter, and more power coming out of this engine. And finally, compact design. The injectors are getting smaller, they're actually getting simpler and easy to use. So with this in mind, I want to talk about the 3 basic types of injectors. Some companies refer to this as generations, and the exception to this is the piezoelectric injector, but there are basically 3 generations of injectors, and including the piezoelectric. Bosch likes to talk about 4 generations, and that's the CS1 and the CS2, or CRS I should say, injector. Again, that CRS1 put out just under 20,000, was capable of 3 or 4 injections. The CRS2 was quicker, capable of 6-7 injections. And then the CS3 injector was the piezoelectric, using crystals, using quartz crystals, rather than a servo-hydraulic injector. So servo-hydraulic means we're using a very small electrical impulse to control the injector rod, and the rods have gotten smaller. The amount of electricity to use these small solenoids is smaller, so it's called servo-hydraulic injectors. Piezoelectric was separate from that. HADIS, hydraulically amplified diesel injection systems, also called ACR, uses fuel pressure and an intensifier piston. This is very similar to the HUE system that has a larger piston on top and it was using oil, engine oil, to create the pressures. Well, this one's using fuel to create the pressures to intensify. It's a 2-to-1 intensification. So I think the pressures are coming in there around 18 or 19,000 PSI, and they're being doubled into the 39,000 PSI. And that's called the HADIS. I've got a note here that tell me, again, that's hydraulically amplified diesel injection systems, or amplified common rail, ACR, typically is what they were calling it. CRS3 was the electrohydraulic solenoid with the piezoelectric crystal, as I mentioned. And then finally, the fourth generation is called a coaxial injector. And what's changed in this coaxial injector is the injection tip. Let's say that's the injection tip. It has multiple rows of holes, allowing the injector to change the voltage or manipulate the voltage supplied to the injector, or to the solenoid, exactly, and produce different amounts of sprays and different intensities of sprays. So this is advantageous in the control of the combustion chamber as well. So in summary, we've changed the injector so we can have multiple bursts, lots of small bursts of injector, supplying the machine more power, more energy when we need it, quieter operation, more atomization to get this fuel very small so that it will do its job. So knowing that with these systems, let's look at this. The new demands, I've spoken of the 4 generations. Bosch calls it 4 generations. Keeping in mind that CRS, Common Rail System 1 and 2 are very similar. 2 was an upgrade. 3 is the piezoelectric, and then 4 was this intensifier, 2-to-1 intensifier piston. So those are the 4 injectors we're talking about. 3 of them are used today. The first one kind of isn't used because it was improved on in number 2. So higher pressures, definitely. We're into almost 40,000 psi in this conversation. Variable timing in the beginning. These injections, and the piezoelectric is rumored to be 10, but I understand it's 8 injections per combustion cycle. So that is a 1 millisecond, and again, it's rumored that it can do it in microseconds, so even smaller. A small injection into the combustion chamber when it needs it to improve power, emissions, and quietness. Multiple injections we talked about, reduced or increased injection rate, the amount of fuel. When we look at the HADA system or amplified common rail, it starts to really be clear that we need to control how much fuel is getting in there, when it's getting in there, and the volume or the rate of fuel getting in there. I hope you found this introductory video on electronic fuel injection helpful.